Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Practically the instant that the voice entered the room, Duan Ling Tian felt a wave of trembling come from the ground, a trembling that shook in a higher and higher frequency, and it was like an earthquake. What a strong earth concept. The instant that Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted and he revealed an astonished expression, a tall figure had appeared before him. This was a young man in gray clothes who had an extremely gloomy expression, his eyes flickering with frightful cold lights, and atop his body, there seemed to be strands of earthen yellow glows flashing about as they emitted an exceedingly strange aura. Brother Yong. Wang Qiong revealed a wisp of an apologetic expression when she saw the gray-clothed young man appear. She was careless and had caused her husband to be worried. Big Brother Zhang. The person that appeared before Duan Ling Tian was precisely Zhang Shou-yong, who he'd gotten acquainted with that day at the ancient city of Everlast, the young man with extraordinary strength. He was only a little over 30, yet his cultivation had already broken through to the second level of the void initiation stage, and he'd even comprehended third-level earth concept. Moreover, he had a wine guard that was a grade 5 spirit weapon in his possession. You? How did you find this place? No. Impossible. Wu Ji seemed as if he'd seen a ghost when he saw Zhang Shou-yong, and his countenance was pale to the extreme. As far as he was concerned, Zhang Shou-yong was in existence at the void-prying stage or above and wasn't someone he could go against. This time, he dared capture Wang Qiong because he was certain that Zhang Shou-yong was in closed-door cultivation, and he was confident in concealing Wang Qiong before Zhang Shou-yong was alarmed. But now, everything seemed to have not gone according to the plan in his heart. Where exactly did the mistake occur? He couldn't understand no matter how he racked his brains. It's you. Han Jian's body shivered when he saw Zhang Shou-yong. His eyes were filled with extreme terror, as if Zhang Shou-yong was the judge that controlled life and death and could decide his life or death at any time and place. Han Jian. Zhang Shou-yong's face sank and seemed to be covered in a layer of ice. I warned you the last time to use business methods to settle things between trading companies. Looks like you didn't absorb the lesson. If I knew you were so bold, I shouldn't have listened to my wife the other time and spared you. I should have killed you that day. No, don't kill me. Don't kill me. Han Jian was terrified to the point he shivered, and then fell on the floor and was in an extremely sorry state. In next to no time, the foul smell of urine soared into the sky. It was Han Jian who was terrified to the point he peed himself and peed all over the ground. This scene caused Duan Ling Tian to be speechless. This Hang Jian was a branch president of a trading company after all, yet he was actually so useless. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse stood on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder and cried out twice, and her jade green eyes contained a slight laughing expression mixed within. It was as if she was laughing at Han Jian. I don't want to dirty my hands by killing you. Zhang Shou-yong glanced at Han Jian in disgust. Then he raised his right leg and slowly stomped it down. Bang! Origin energy skyrocketed when Zhang Shou-yong's leg descended, and the earthen yellow energy on it surged to fuse into the ground. In the next moment, kacha, kacha, kacha. Ear-piercing sounds of bones breaking sounded out successively. The sounds were accompanied by Han Jian and successive screams of pain, shrill cries from extreme pain. Han Jian and shrill cries continued for an entire 15 minutes before stopping. Whereas Han Jian's body that ceaselessly vibrated had finally stopped moving and crashed onto the ground to become a pool of mush. Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted when he saw this. This achieves the same results as my quake energy, but by different methods. However, Big Brother Zhang used his origin energy combined with his earth concept to shatter all the bones in Han Jian's body in one go. Big Brother Zhang's earth concept. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian looked at the sky above Zhang Shou-yong. There were 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes vaguely noticeable there, and the enormous silhouettes had been forcefully compressed together by the narrow little room. The strength of 11 ancient horned dragons. Duan Ling Tian was astonished. When he carefully inspected it, he noticed that amongst the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, there was a distance between 6 of them and another 5 of them. They were separate. 4th level void initiation stage. Fifth level Earth concept. Duan Ling Tian gasped. He'd never imagined that when he met Zhang Shouyong once more, he would actually possess such a terrifying strength. He still remembered that when he first got acquainted with Zhang Shouyong, he was only a second-level void initiation stage martial artist that had only comprehended the third-level Earth concept. But even then, he was still shocked by Zhang Shouyong's natural talent in the martial Dao and comprehension ability. After all, Zhang Shouyong was only a little over 30. Now, the strength Zhang Shouyong displayed when obliterating Han Jian and in rage had shocked Duan Ling Tian once again. Han Jian had been tortured for an entire 15 minutes by Zhang Shouyong's formidable origin energy combined with his fifth-level Earth concept before dying, and he died awfully tragically. Initiation. Void initiation stage. The nearby Wu Ji and the two people that brought Han Jian and over had finally recovered from their shock, and their bodies started to tremble intensely as they looked at the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky. Ancient horned dragon silhouettes. They'd only heard of it, but had never seen it. If it was at an ordinary time, they would perhaps feel that their horizons were broadened when seeing an ancient horned dragon silhouette with their own two eyes. But at this moment, they didn't have thoughts like this. When they saw Zhang Shouyong look over, the two people by Wu Ji's side fell down to kneel on the floor, and they were terrified to the extreme as they said with trembling voices, "Lord, spare my life. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me." Presently, they didn't even dare have the thought of fleeing. What a joke. Before a person that could exert the strength of 11 ancient horned dragons without even using a spirit weapon, it would be impossible for them to flee even if they had 10 legs. Now, they only hoped that this expert could show mercy and allow them to live. Zhang Shouyong didn't even spare a glance at these two. His gaze shot directly onto Wu Ji, and he said with a low voice, "Wu Ji, you're really bold. You even dared to touch my woman." Humph. Wu Ji took a deep breath. Perhaps he knew that he was faced with imminent danger, and it was impossible for him to obtain Zhang Shouyong's forgiveness. So he completely let go and feared nothing. I, Wu Ji, have swept through everything unobstructed in my entire life, and my life can be said to have not been lived in vain, as I'm able to die in the hands of a void initiation stage expert today. Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Zhang Shouyong's voice was cold and indifferent, as if it sounded out from an icy pit, and it contained extreme icy coldness mixed within. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyong raised his leg once again before fiercely stomping down. Bang! The terrifying origin energy roared and swept out, accompanied by the fifth-level Earth concept, to surge towards Wu Ji. Instantly, Wu Ji's body shook, his face flushed red, and he emitted a muffled grunt from enduring the pain. Right at this moment, a wave of bone-cracking sounds resounded out. The sounds were clear and ear-piercing, and it caused one to feel a chill run down one's spine. Although Wu Ji was unyielding, when his legs were shattered, he couldn't help but emit a shrill cry, and his face became white like a sheet. Bang! After the bones in his legs were shook to powder, Wu Ji's load body transformed into a pool of mush with a bang, and his upper body pressed itself onto this pool of mush. His expression was warped and savage, and he was in extreme pain. Zhang Shouyong seemed to intend to torture Wu Ji, and he intentionally withdrew his origin energy and fifth-level Earth concept at this moment. Right at this moment, Wu Ji's eyes sprang wide open and a strand of resolution flashed within it. Subsequently, he raised his hand and a spirit sword appeared within his hand. Swish! Wu Ji didn't attack anyone, but instead held the spirit sword to swipe towards his own neck as he wanted to commit suicide and free himself. "Wanna die? It isn't that easy." Zhang Shouyong's indifferent voice sounded out, and the spirit sword in Wu Ji's hand was directly smashed flying by a strong force, and it dropped to the ground with a clang. On Wu Ji's savage and warped face was an extremely unsightly expression. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyong raised his hand. His origin energy twined around his fifth-level Earth concept and howled out to shatter Wu Ji's hands before Wu Ji could raise his hand and commit suicide by shattering his own skull. Wu Ji's shrill cry sounded out once more, and it was incomparably miserable and caused chills to run down one's spine. At this moment, Amongst the people present, only Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse had calm expressions and didn't experience any change in their expressions. Wang Qiong's face was deathly pale, as she'd never seen such a scene before. As for the two people that knelt on the ground, they were terrified to the point they followed in Han Jian's footsteps and wet their pants. For a time, the entire room was filled with the foul smell of urine. Just like Ku-er and Little Fei are my reverse scales, sister-in-law is similarly Big Brother Zhang's reverse scale. Duan Ling Tian was able to understand Zhang Shouyang's current feelings. If Wang Qiong were to be changed to Ku-er or Little Fei, then Han Jian and Wu Ji would only be in even more miserable states than they were now. As the king of mercenaries in his previous life, Duan Ling Tian's method of torture were far from something Zhang Shouyang was able to compare to. Brother Yong, kill him. In the end, Wang Qiong couldn't bear it any longer. When he heard Wang Qiong, Zhang Shouyang's cruel expression emitted a rare wisp of gentleness. Then his gaze went cold as he raised his hand and condensed a palm print that crashed downwards. You're lucky. Accompanied by Zhang Shouyang's cold and indifferent words, Wu Ji's head was slapped open by him, and the brain juices that sprayed out splattered all over the faces of the two that knelt nearby. The two of them instantly cried out loudly, "Lord, spare us. We only run errands. Lord, spare us, spare us." However, how could Zhang Shouyang, who was exceedingly enraged, let them off? Along with Zhang Shouyang's hand raising and falling, the two people that knelt on the floor followed in the footsteps of Han Jian and Wu Ji, dead. "Qiong, are you all right?" Zhang Shouyang's figure flashed to Wang Qiong's side before asking with a light voice. Zhang Shouyang, who was like a malefic existence earlier, fully displayed tender and softness like water now. Compared to before, he was simply like another person. "I'm fine." Wang Qiong shook her head. Then she looked at Duan Ling Tian. Fortunately, Brother Ling Tian arrived in time. Otherwise, I would have probably died under Han Jianan's hand before Brother Yong arrived. Earlier, it was precisely because Duan Ling Tian appeared in time that he'd bought Zhang Shouyang some time. Otherwise, Han Jianan would have succeeded long ago and killed Wang Qiong. "Brother Ling Tian, thank you." Zhang Shouyang looked at Duan Ling Tian with a grateful expression. The most important person to him in this world was undoubtedly his wife, Wang Qiong. When he recalled the scene that occurred earlier, he was once again scared to the point he broke out in cold sweat. "Big Brother Zhang, you're too kind." Duan Ling Tian smiled lightly, then asked curiously, "Big Brother Zhang, why are you and sister-in-law in Blackwind City? Besides that, how did sister-in-law contract enmity with a despicable person like Han Jianan? Let's speak after we leave." Zhang Shouyang glanced at the 3 puddles of piss on the floor and frowned. Then his frown eased up as he looked at Duan Ling Tian. "All right." Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse left with Zhang Shouyang and Wang Qiong. Then he followed them to return to the large courtyard they stayed in. "President." The 2 middle-aged men that guarded at the entrance bowed respectfully to Wang Qiong. Wang Qiong nodded lightly. "President." Duan Ling Tian's brows raised, and he was slightly surprised. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse followed behind Zhang Shouyang and Wang Qiong to enter the spacious courtyard. Within the courtyard was a spacious room that was obviously the residence of Zhang Shouyang and his wife. All along the way, the servants that they occasionally encountered would respectfully address Wang Qiong as president. Duan Ling Tian, Zhang Shouyang, and Wang Qiong sat around the stone table in the spacious courtyard. "Big Brother Zhang, why did those people from before address sister-in-law as president? Could it be that sister-in-law joined a trading company of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and she has become the person in charge of the trading company in Blackwind City?" Duan Ling Tian guessed. Zhang Shouyang said with a smile, "Brother Ling Tian, you're really smart. You guessed it right away." "Exactly. Qiong is the person in charge of the Floating Cloud Trading Company's branch in Blackwind City." When he spoke up to hear, Zhang Shouyang stopped momentarily before continuing. Since Qiong became the person in charge of the Floating Cloud Trading Company's branch in Blackwind City, Han Jian was completely suppressed by Qiong. So, he's hated Qiong extremely since the beginning. The last time, he'd already sent people to look for trouble with us, and they were thrown away by me. Yet I never imagined that he was so bold as to dare collude with others to capture Qiong. Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding. So that's what happened. Sister-in-law suppressed Han Jian and in every aspect. I presume she had great natural talent and ability in business. As he finished speaking, Duan Ling Tian looked at Wang Qiong in slight surprise. Brother Ling Tian, there's something you don't know. The clan Qiong is from established themselves by business. Qiong followed my father-in-law around since she was young and has learned much in the Tao of business. Now, she has a place to use her abilities. As Zhang Shouyong spoke, he looked at Wang Qiong with tender affection. So that's how it is. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Right, Brother Ling Tian, why are you in Blackwind City? I heard that the Seven-Star Sword sect. Zhang Shouyong looked at Duan Ling Tian and was slightly hesitant to speak. Only now did he recall that he'd heard some time ago about the news of the Seven-Star Sword sect's annihilation. At that time, he and Wang Qiong broke out in cold sweat for Duan Ling Tian and Li Fei, who were at the Seven-Star Sword sect. Right, the Seven-Star Sword sect doesn't exist anymore. Duan Ling Tian nodded. How about my little sister Fei? How is she? Wang Qiong reacted after being reminded by Zhang Shouyong, and she asked with a concerned expression. To her, she didn't care about the lives of the other people in the Seven-Star Sword sect. She only cared about Duan Ling Tian and Li Fei, who she was well acquainted with. Duan Ling Tian was safe and sound now, so she couldn't help but be worried about Li Fei's safety. Don't worry, sister-in-law, little Fei is fine. At that time, she just happened to not be at the Seven-Star Sword sect. Duan Ling Tian forced out a smile. When he heard Zhang Shouyong mention the Seven-Star Sword sect now, it caused him to be unable to refrain from recalling the scene of the Seven-Star Sword sect being annihilated that day. Those numerous scenes were something he couldn't forget in his entire lifetime. Brother Ling Tian, did you come to Blackwind City for something? Zhang Shouyong noticed Duan Ling Tian's current expression and guessed Duan Ling Tian's thoughts, so he hurriedly changed the conversation's topic. No, I'm just passing through, Duan Ling Tian said with a smile. Brother Ling Tian, what plans do you have for the future? Wang Qiong asked Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian's eyes squinted when he heard this and said slowly, I plan to go around in this year and wander from place to place for some time. After a year, I must hurry to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City to enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Dragon and Phoenix Academy? Zhang Shouyong and Wang Qiong were stunned when they heard Duan Ling Tian, as they'd obviously never heard of any Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Brother Ling Tian, this Dragon and Phoenix Academy is? Zhang Shouyong asked curiously. It's an academy the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family established for the sake of the selecting geniuses for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Most of the young geniuses in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will gather there 1 year from now, then undergo a selection 2 years later to choose the strongest few that will head to the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City to participate in the next round of selection, Duan Ling Tian said slowly. Martial competition of the 10 dynasties? Zhang Shouyong and Wang Qiong looked at Duan Ling Tian with a bewildered expression. Duan Ling Tian wasn't the least bit surprised that they didn't know about the martial competition. Presently, this matter probably hadn't completely spread out yet. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian introduced in detail the martial competition of the 10 dynasties to Zhang Shouyong and Wang Qiong. He noticed that Zhang Shouyong's gaze lit up many times. Obviously, Zhang Shouyong was extremely interested in the martial competition. Big brother Zhang, with your age, you completely satisfy the participation conditions of the martial competition. Moreover, with your natural talent and strength, obtaining the qualifications to participate and even standing out in the martial competition isn't a difficult matter. Duan Ling Tian was filled with confidence towards Zhang Shouyong's strength. Currently, Zhang Shouyong was already a 4th-level Void Initiation stage martial artist that had even comprehended 5th-level Earth concept. With Zhang Shouyong's natural talent, his strength would surely be even stronger after 5 years. Even though he didn't know Zhang Shouyong's background, he was vaguely able to guess that the clan Zhang Shouyong mentioned in the past was probably a clan in the Darkhan dynasty. Perhaps, Only a clan in the Dark Han dynasty was able to foster an extraordinary genius in the martial Tao like Zhang Shouyong. Zhang Shouyong nodded, then glanced at Wang Qiong before saying, "Let fate decide." Obviously, he was taking Wang Qiong into consideration. Duan Ling Tian noticed as well and didn't say anything else, then bid his farewell. "Big brother Zhang, sister-in-law, I'm leaving Black Wind City at dawn tomorrow. Goodbye." Duan Ling Tian stood up as he spoke. Zhang Shouyong and Wang Qiong nodded and sent Duan Ling Tian off with their gazes. After Duan Ling Tian left, the atmosphere between Zhang Shouyong and Wang Qiong became slightly quiet. After a short while, Wang Qiong said, "Brother Yong, this is a good opportunity for you. I know that you've always been attracted to the mysterious and unfathomable foreign lands. This time, you've finally obtained an opportunity, and you must not miss it." Zhang Shouyong sighed. "That what about you? I won't separate with you no matter what." Wang Qiong said with a smile, "I'll always accompany you by your side." Zhang Shouyong's body trembled slightly when he heard this. Then he nodded. "There's no rush. There's still another 4 years of time anyway." If Duan Ling Tian heard Zhang Shouyong's words now, he would surely be 100% confirmed of Zhang Shouyong's background. For years. The day the martial competition of the 10 dynasties started was 5 years from now, whereas 4 years from now was precisely the day all the young geniuses of the Dark Han dynasty competed with the young geniuses of the various empires, imperial kingdoms, and kingdoms subordinate to the Dark Han dynasty. Obviously, Zhang Shouyong was waiting for the young geniuses of the Dark Han dynasty to compete. At that time, he would directly compete for the qualification to participate in the martial competition. After Duan Ling Tian left the floating cloud trading company with the little gold mouse, he returned to the inn. At dawn the next day, he woke up naturally from his sleep, then brought along the little gold mouse to have a good meal in a restaurant before leaving Black Wind City. After leaving Black Wind City, Duan Ling Tian headed east. All along the way, he cultivated as he gained experience. If there was no need, he would prohibit the little gold mouse from helping. Under his hard work, his returns were extremely great. Time flew by. 3 months later, Duan Ling Tian successfully broke through to the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. 8 months later, Duan Ling Tian successfully broke through to the half-step void stage. 11 months later, Duan Ling Tian's cultivation reached the peak of the half-step void stage and was only a step away from the void prying stage. At the peak of a precipitous mountain that wasn't far from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city, a violet-colored figure sat cross-legged there. This was a violet-clothed young man with a tall figure. He had sword-shaped brows and starry eyes, and he was extraordinary and handsome with a graceful bearing. Presently, strands of white-colored origin energy occasionally raged out from the violet-clothed young man's body, and within the origin energy was strands of faint azure-colored energy that flickered with an exceedingly strange aura. Squeak, squeak. Whereas on the shoulder of the violet-clothed young man, a fluffy little gold mouse was looking around at the surroundings, seeming to be on alert as she fiddled with a spirit sword in her hand. Suddenly, the violet-clothed young man woke up. "It's almost time." The violet-clothed young man opened his eyes that were like dazzling stars, and the corners of his mouth curled into a heartfelt smile. "So long as I consume 1 drop of Monkey King wine, it will be sufficient to allow me to directly break through to the void prying stage. I've cultivated for many days and have finally accumulated my origin energy to the limit." This violet-clothed young man was precisely Duan Ling Tian, who'd left the Black Wind City 11 months ago. During this 11 months of time, he'd relied on his peerless and monstrous natural talent to obtain great gains. Of course, it was mostly gains in cultivation. Presently, his cultivation had already increased to the limit of the half-step void stage and was already halfway into the void prying stage. He was only a strand away from being able to smoothly break through. However, even if it was only a strand, if he didn't have the assistance of external forces, it would be difficult for him to break through in a short amount of time. Just like the group of half-step void stage martial artists in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, there were no lack of existences that were halfway into the void prying stage, but because of the lack of this final strand, they might not be fated to advance to the void-prying stage for their entire lifetime. But Duan Ling Tian instead didn't have to worry. Although with his natural talent, even if he relied on his own hard work, he would be able to smoothly break through to the void-prying stage sooner or later. But he had a shortcut to take now, and he naturally wouldn't miss it. Monkey King Wine. With a raise of his hand, Duan Ling Tian withdrew a drop of Monkey King Wine. The Monkey King Wine was precisely obtained by him in the Crosscut mountain range that was outside the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city, and it was given to him by the great Monkey King of the Stone Monkeys. The Monkey King Wine possessed the medicinal strength of a void advancement pill, yet didn't have the side effects of the void advancement pill. It was a type of rare treasure. Squeak, squeak. Duan Ling Tian had just withdrawn the Monkey King Wine when the little gold mouse that stood on his shoulder cried out in excitement. Obviously, she was filled with interest towards the Monkey King Wine. Big Brother Ling Tian, what wine is this? Only the fragrance of the wine has caused the origin energy in my body to become restless. The little gold mouse looked with eager eyes at the drop of Monkey King Wine in Duan Ling Tian's hand as she asked via voice transmission. You little fellow, open your mouth. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and directly shot the drop of Monkey King Wine into the little gold mouse's mouth with a raise of his hand. Instantly, she little gold mouse shuddered and lay on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder before closing her jade green eyes and starting to cultivate. She was absorbing the medicinal strength of the Monkey King Wine. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled when he saw the little gold mouse immersed in cultivating, and he withdrew another drop of Monkey King Wine before opening his mouth and swallowing it. Instantly, the overbearing medicinal strength of the Monkey King Wine started to rage within Duan Ling Tian's body, desiring to strengthen Duan Ling Tian's origin energy. Unfortunately, Duan Ling Tian's origin energy had already arrived at the limit of the half-step void stage. Now, it had even been accumulated by Duan Ling Tian to the limit. So, at the same time that the medicinal strength of the Monkey King Wine was strengthening Duan Ling Tian's origin energy, it was urging the transformation of the origin energy within Duan Ling Tian's body to a certain extent. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning WIRM Form. The Lightning WIRM form was the 5th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, and it was the mental cultivation method that corresponded to the void prying stage. After Duan Ling Tian's cultivation broke through to the half-step void stage, his 4th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, the Wind WIRM form, had already been cultivated to the limit. If he wanted to advance further, then he must cultivate the next portion of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, the 5th form, the Lightning WIRM form. Along with Duan Ling Tian circulating the mental cultivation method of the Lightning WIRM form, the origin energy in his body started vibrating intensely, and it was even to the extent that it showed traces of collapsing. Of course, it wasn't really collapsing. Just like the saying, a phoenix achieves rebirth and gains new life, Duan Ling Tian's origin energy was undergoing a similar transformation. Duan Ling Tian was immersed in his cultivation, and the mental cultivation method of the Lightning WIRM form ceaselessly circulated. He didn't know how long had passed. It was like an instant, yet also like a few years. Finally, the origin energy in his body ceaselessly vibrated, and under the urging of the medicinal strength of the Monkey King Wine in the end, his origin energy underwent a qualitative transformation. The origin energy that had undergone a qualitative transformation flowed continuously into Duan Ling Tian's Dantian. Whereas within Duan Ling Tian's Dantian, the nascent soul condensed from origin energy suddenly expanded, and at the same time it became slightly illusory. Void prying stage. When he saw the nascent soul become big and illusory, Duan Ling Tian knew that he'd broken through to the void prying stage. The void prying stage was the first stage in the void stage, and it was considered as an introductory stage. In the 4 stages within the void stage, there was a chasm that was difficult to surmount between every stage, and the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. For example, a 9th-level void prying stage martial artist was able to exert the strength of 1 ancient horned dragon and 2,000 ancient mammoths by only relying on origin energy. Whereas a first-level void initiation stage martial artist was able to exert the strength of 2 ancient horned dragons by only relying on origin energy. The difference between the two was the strength of 8,000 ancient mammoths. Of course, the higher the stage, the bigger the gap. I've finally broken through. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes, and a bright light that was like a flashing meteor flashed within his eye. What formidable strength! Duan Ling Tian lightly clenched his fist, and when his origin energy leaped about, he was able to feel the surging strength contained within. Whoosh! Above Duan Ling Tian, 2011 ancient mammoth silhouettes slowly condensed into form. An ordinary first-level void prying stage martial artist possessed a strength comparable to 2,000 ancient mammoths when only utilizing origin energy, whereas Duan Ling Tian instead possessed an extra strength of 11 ancient mammoths when compared to a martial artist with a similar cultivation. This was the special benefit the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique gifted him in the past. However, along with the increase in his strength, the effect of this special benefit had become smaller and smaller. After all, before battles that utilized the strength of over 1,000 ancient mammoths at every turn, the strength of 11 ancient mammoths seemed to be insignificant. My spiritual force. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian started to check his spiritual force. In the end, Duan Ling Tian noticed helplessly that his spiritual force actually didn't advance in the slightest. It was still at the first level of the void prying stage as before. It's waiting for my cultivation to synchronize with it. Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly as he'd originally thought that along with his cultivation breaking through to the void prying stage, his spiritual force would break through as well. Unexpectedly, his spiritual force had instead didn't move at all. 1 year ago, when he was only a 6th-level nascent soul stage martial artist, his spiritual force's level was at the first level of the void prying stage. Now, he'd broken through to the first level of the void prying stage, and his spiritual force was still at the first level of the void prying stage. Looks like the spiritual force that was increased from consuming spirit fruits that increased spiritual force doesn't advance along with the cultivation and advances stably. In the end, Duan Ling Tian could only wildly guess himself. After all, he was facing this condition right now. Never mind. Even if my spiritual force hasn't advanced, my cultivation has advanced to the first level of the void prying stage after all, and it can be considered to be a good thing. Perhaps I'm still too greedy. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian relaxed his mind and didn't fuss about it any longer. Presently, my spiritual force is synchronized to my cultivation. In the future, so long as my cultivation increases, then my spiritual force will be able to increase correspondingly. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and he wanted to continue to set out towards a higher level of cultivation. But he knew that he'd only just broken through to the first level of the void prying stage now, and his foundation wasn't stable, let alone charging to a higher level of cultivation. 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation. It has come so quickly. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian felt his heart palpitate for no reason, and a thought suddenly emerged within his mind. This was the indication of the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation. Every human or demon beast that had just broken through to the void prying stage would have to experience this moment. Duan Ling Tian, who'd merged with the lifetime worth of memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, wasn't surprised by this. Around 10 day, during this period of time, I have to prepare properly to greet the baptism of the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation. My tempest point is relying on it. Duan Ling Tian suddenly stood up, and his fierce gaze shot into the distance. Along with the dispersing of the clouds and mist, an enormous city that stood in the distance appeared before Duan Ling Tian's eyes, and it was like a demon beast that was in a deep slumber for a long time and would awaken at any moment. That place was the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. There's still some time, and it's just nice enough for me to overcome the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation before heading to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Duan Ling Tian decided in his heart. After a short moment, Duan Ling Tian's figure abruptly flashed out into the distance. Whirlwind. In this instant, His entire body seemed to have transformed into a swift gale that swept the clouds and mist on the peak of the mountain to the point they roiled. Swoosh! In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian pointed out his finger with a life of his hand. The origin energy on his finger was condensed and flickered with strands of azure-colored energy, and it contained a shocking might. Swish! In next to no time, a milky white beam of light shot out from the tip of the finger Duan Ling Tian pointed out. The surroundings of the beam of light was coiled by azure-colored energy, and it has like azure-colored little snakes that shot out along with the white beam of light. Bang! The white-colored beam of light shot onto an enormous rock at the side of the peak, and the azure-colored little snakes swept out, causing the enormous rock to shatter, and fragments of rock shot out as stone dust suffused the air. Presently, I've mastered wind force, yet have no knowledge of lightning force. This Tempest Point hasn't even stepped into the initial stage. However, the Tempest Point is a high-grade Earth rank martial skill after all, and even if it didn't step into the initial stage, once wind force is integrated into it, its might would be far from something the dragon's finishing touch was able to compare to. Duan Ling Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. The Tempest Point was a high-grade Earth rank martial skill, and it was a martial skill that came along with the fifth form of the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Lightning WIRM form. It stressed upon wind force and lightning force supplementing each other, and using that to execute a formidable attack. Gods and ghosts wailed before the Tempest Point. This was what the Rebirth Martial Emperor annotated on the Tempest Point. Wind is adept at speed, and its attack is fierce and swift. Even though the speed of lightning is inferior to wind, it's only a slight difference. Moreover, the explosive force of lightning is far superior to wind. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. It could be easily imagined that a martial skill that used wind and lightning to supplement each other would surely have an extremely shocking might. Presently, I can be considered to have started to comprehend the half-step advanced wind force, whereas I haven't comprehended lightning force in the slightest. I can only hope that I can use the energy of the tribulation lightning during the 6-9 heavenly tribulation to comprehend lightning force. When he thought up to here, Duan Ling Tian glanced at the little gold mouse that was still cultivating on his shoulder. He still remembered that during the time the little gold mouse overcame her 6-9 heavenly tribulation, the 6th tribulation lightning was directly swallowed by her. Not only that, she even relied on the energy of the tribulation lightning to successfully comprehend lightning force. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary lightning force, but half-step advanced lightning force. Whereas now, the little gold mouse had relied on her natural talent as a jade-eyed heavenly mouse to perfectly comprehend advanced lightning force, and in the comprehension of lightning force, she could be considered to have stepped into the perfection stage. Of course, after advanced lightning force, there was still lightning concept. That was something the little gold mouse needed to draw support from the advanced lightning force to comprehend. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor and the records of the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, when the 6-9 heavenly tribulation arrives, I don't have to swallow the tribulation lightning like little gold. Of course, even if I want to swallow it, I don't have the ability. Duan Ling Tian could imagine that if he dared to learn from little gold and open his mouth to swallow the tribulation lightning, then the one that would suffer would definitely be him. Not everyone was able to swallow tribulation lightning. Presently, I've comprehended half-step advanced wind force, and my whirlwind can be considered to have officially stepped into the mastery stage. Once I comprehend advanced wind force, then I would be considered to have cultivated whirlwind to the perfection stage. As Duan Ling Tian thought, his figure flashed out like a gale that ceaselessly swept by. For a time, dust suffused the peak of the mountain, and all the clouds and mist on the peak had dispersed. 9 days later, it has finally come. Duan Ling Tian raised his head to look at the horizon. The clouds and mist in the horizon were ceaselessly being compressed, and in the end, it transformed into a whirlpool that revolved without end. The 6-9 heavenly tribulation was about to arrive. At the center of the whirlpool that was formed from the compression of the clouds and mist that covered the sky, a ball of dark clouds was ceaselessly roiling and brewing. Hiss, 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 hiss. Violet-colored lightning and thunder endlessly raged within it, seeming like numerous little snakes that danced about, dazzling and resplendent. However, Duan Ling Tian currently didn't have the mood to take notice of all this. Whirlwind. Duan Ling Tian's figure flashed, and he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that blew towards the horizon. Duan Ling Tian stepped on the air and rose up with skilled movements, and there wasn't the slightest lack of fluency. If it was an ordinary martial artist that had just broken through to the void-prying stage, the martial artist would at least require a period of time to familiarize himself before being able to control the air and fly. But Duan Ling Tian was different. Duan Ling Tian had merged with the lifetime worth of memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, and he was extremely familiar with the technique to control the air and flying. He was easily able to float in the air and was entirely not like a martial artist that had just broken through to the void-prying stage. Little Gold is here now as well, and 12 bolts of tribulation lightning will descend from the 6-9 heavenly tribulation. I wonder if I'll be able to smoothly comprehend half-step advanced lightning force by relying on the 12 bolts of tribulation lightning. Duan Ling Tian looked up into the sky. The violet-colored lightning within the dark clouds had brewed to the limit, and the first tribulation lightning might descend at any moment. Duan Ling Tian's ambition was extremely great. He wanted to comprehend half-step advanced lightning force in one go. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor and the records of the lightning WYRM form, so long as he combined wind force to execute Tempest Point to go against the tribulation lightning, he would be able to use this to comprehend lightning force. Based on the calculations of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, he would at most be able to comprehend elementary lightning force. Presently, the little gold mouse lay on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder in cultivation. Although she didn't awaken, because she didn't leave Duan Ling Tian by 100 meters, the 6-9 heavenly tribulation would replicate an extra bolt of tribulation lightning that targeted the little gold mouse every time a bolt of tribulation lightning descended. Duan Ling Tian planned to shoulder the 6 bolts of tribulation lightning that targeted the little gold mouse as well. Needless to say, Duan Ling Tian's thought was extremely insane. Finally, the lightning within the dark clouds in the horizon had accumulated to the limit, and a bolt of lightning that was as thick as an infant's arm was condensed. Bang! The bolt of lightning descended from the sky, carrying along a shocking might as it struck straight towards Duan Ling Tian's head. It was the first tribulation lightning. In almost an instant, another bolt of tribulation lightning struck down right after the previous, and the target of this bolt of tribulation lightning was instead the little gold mouse that was cultivating on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder. Humph! Duan Ling Tian's gaze was slightly cold, and he wasn't afraid in the slightest as he went to meet the bolt of tribulation lightning head-on. Tempest Point. With a raise of his hand, Duan Ling Tian pointed out, and his strength fully exploded out. Swish! A milky white beam of origin energy completely condensed together before emitting a piercing howl as it shot out, and its target was the bolt of tribulation lightning that had struck down first. Strands of azure-colored energy twined on the surroundings of the beam of origin energy, and they were like numerous azure-colored little snakes that were swimming about. It was precisely the half-step advanced wind force that Duan Ling Tian had comprehended. After he pointed out, Duan Ling Tian didn't dare dally. Tempest Point. He pointed out again, and a similar beam of origin energy pierced towards the other bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! Bang! 2 enormous bangs practically sounded out at the exact same instant. The incomplete Tempest Point that Duan Ling Tian executed had easily annihilated the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. Duan Ling Tian heaved a sigh of relief, and he looked at the horizon with a serious expression. Although he'd easily stopped the first bolt of tribulation lightning, he knew that the truly formidable tribulation lightning was coming later on. That day, he'd witnessed the little gold mouse overcoming the 6-9 heavenly tribulation with his own 2 eyes. Bang! In next to no time, the second bolt of tribulation lightning had condensed into form and descended with a bang. Bang! Another bolt that possessed a similar might followed closely behind it. 2 bolts of tribulation lightning again. One shot straight towards Duan Ling Tian. The other went straight towards the little gold mouse. However, The little gold mouse was still cultivating now, and only Duan Ling Tian could be relied upon to forcefully shoulder these two bolts of tribulation lightning. Swish, swish. He pointed out another 2 times, and the milky white beam of light that was twined with wind force shot out via the tempest point Duan Ling Tian executed and moved to intercept the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. Bang, bang. The 2 bolts of tribulation lightning were annihilated once more. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian felt his vital blood and energy roil. The strength of 2 bolts of tribulation lightning is extremely strong, as expected. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath and continued to look up into the sky, awaiting the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning. Earlier, Duan Ling Tian obtained a certain amount of gains from successively shouldering 4 bolts of tribulation lightning. Every time he executed Tempest Point and pointed towards the tribulation lightning, he was able to clearly feel the changes in the lightning within the tribulation lightning. Lighting. It was violent, wreaked havoc, and possessed a shocking might. Bang. The 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning came as scheduled. Bang. Behind it, another bolt of tribulation lightning followed. Duan Ling Tian's gaze was cold. Tempest Point. Duan Ling Tian pointed out with a raise of his hand, and the beam of light that was twined in wind force instantly swept towards the 1st bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! The tribulation lightning and beam of origin energy exploded at almost the exact same instant, then they transformed into nothingness. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian's internal organs trembled, and he felt his vital energy and blood roil. The might of the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning is actually so strong. When he saw there was still another bolt of tribulation lightning flashing over from behind, whereas he was temporarily unable to execute a 2nd tempest point, Duan Ling Tian chose to avoid. Whirlwind. Duan Ling Tian's figure moved. He seemed to transform into a gust of wind, and seemed even more like he was racing with that bolt of tribulation lightning. However, although his speed was swift, the speed of the tribulation lightning was swifter. But Duan Ling Tian didn't plan to pull apart the distance between him and the tribulation lightning, because he knew that it wasn't realistic. The reason he chose to avoid was only for the sake of allowing himself to catch a breath. After all, after he executed Tempest Point to forcefully withstand the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning, the origin energy in his body had dispersed, and it was difficult for it to be converged in a short amount of time, so it was difficult for him to execute Tempest Point once more. Whereas now he'd caught his breath. Tempest Point. Duan Ling Tian suddenly turned around and pointed out, a piercing howl deafened the ears, and the airflow in the sky moved rhythmically as they flowed apart. Swish. The beam of origin energy that contained half-step advanced wind force shot out, and it fiercely collided with the tribulation lightning. Bang. Another enormous bang sounded out, and at the same time that Duan Ling Tian felt his vital energy and blood roil, this bolt of tribulation lightning that chased after the little gold mouse had finally been withstood. Right at this moment. Bang. Bang. 2 thunderclaps sounded out one after the other and descended from the horizon. The 4th bolt of tribulation lightning descended with a bang. This time, Duan Ling Tian played the same old trick and successfully stopped the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. But even then, he was still lightly injured. Fortunately, it wasn't a heavy injury, and after he consumed an injury-curing medicinal pill, he recovered in the blink of an eye. Lightning. Duan Ling Tian looked up into the sky, and as the 5th bolt of tribulation lightning appeared, he obtained some comprehension. Earlier, when he successively withstood numerous bolts of tribulation lightning, and especially when he used Tempest Point to blast them head-on, it had allowed Duan Ling Tian to acquire a clear understanding of the characteristics of lightning to a certain extent. Hiss. With a command of his thoughts, besides the swift and fierce wind force, there was actually a strand of unstable violet energy on the origin energy that leaped about on the tip of his finger. Lightning Force Seed. Duan Ling Tian's gaze abruptly lit up as he knew that he'd already taken the first step. A Lightning Force Seed was the foundation of Lightning Force. Comprehending a Lightning Force Seed meant that he would quickly be able to truly comprehend Lightning Force. The 5th bolt of tribulation lightning. Come. Duan Ling Tian looked up into the sky with an expression of anticipation. He believed that now that he'd comprehended a lightning force seed, so long as he continued to closely come into contact with the tribulation lightning, he would surely be able to comprehend true lightning force. This was something that he was extremely confident about. Bang! Bang! Along with two terrifying sounds of lightning strikes, the thick bolts of lightning descended with a bang, and they seemed like two meteorites that fell from the horizon. Tempest Point. Duan Ling Tian stepped up into the sky to greet the first bolt of tribulation lightning and pointed out. Swish! This time, besides the fierce azure-colored energy that twined on the beam of origin energy that shot out from the tip of Duan Ling Tian's finger, there was another thread of faint violet-colored energy, and it was precisely the lightning force seed. Duan Ling Tian had a feeling that the Tempest Point he executed now completely couldn't be compared to the Tempest Point he executed in the past. The current Tempest Point had both wind force and lightning force. Although the latter was only a lightning force seed, it was sufficient to allow the Tempest Point to ascend onto a new stage. So long as the lightning force seed is able to transform into true lightning force, my Tempest Point will officially step into the initial stage. At that same time that Duan Ling Tian pointed out, he thought in his heart. Whereas in this instant, the origin energy beam that Duan Ling Tian shot out, the Tempest Point that possessed initial form, collided with the fifth bolt of tribulation lightning and emitted an enormous bang. The airflow in the sky flew about as sounds of air exploding rose and fell continuously. Pooh! At the instant the Tempest Point collided with the tribulation lightning, the violent energy contained within the tribulation lightning shook Duan Ling Tian's internal organs to the point he couldn't refrain from spitting out a mouthful of blood. Duan Ling Tian was injured quite heavily. Bang! Right when Duan Ling Tian's body was shaky and on the verge of collapse, the other bolt of lightning that targeted the little gold mouse descended as well. This bolt of tribulation lightning was replicated on the foundation of the fifth bolt of tribulation lightning of the 6-9 heavenly tribulation, and its might was extremely formidable. In a short amount of time, not to mention condensing his origin energy once more, Duan Ling Tian, who was injured quite heavily, was even slightly unable to catch his breath. Whirlwind. Duan Ling Tian gritted his teeth, wanted to execute his movement technique and dodge. But even with the assistance of the half-step advanced wind force, his dispersed origin energy speed was far inferior to the bolt of tribulation lightning. Little goal. Duan Ling Tian's expression went grim. He couldn't take into consideration that the little gold mouse was still cultivating, and he directly sent a voice transmission to pierce into the little gold mouse's ears. Practically at the instant he sent the voice transmission, that bolt of tribulation lightning had already descended straight down towards him. Although the target of the tribulation lightning was only the little gold mouse lay on his shoulder, so for a time, he'd become the target of the tribulation lightning as well. The tribulation lightning was high above in the sky, yet its terrifying aura enveloped downwards and practically sealed Duan Ling Tian within it, causing Duan Ling Tian to feel as if he was within a thunderstorm. A bright light entered his eyes as the aura of lightning carried along the might of nature as it swept over. At this instant, Duan Ling Tian abruptly closed his eyes, seeming to be lost in comprehension. This is lightning. At this time, Duan Ling Tian even forgot that we was in a dangerous situation, and he still silently savored the aura of lightning, comprehending the characteristics of lightning, comprehending everything of lightning. The lightning force seed Duan Ling Tian comprehended was slowly strengthening. When the bolt of tribulation lightning was just about to blast Duan Ling Tian, squeak squeak, the little gold mouse suddenly awoke and emitted a sharp cry. Amongst the sharp cry, the little gold mouse transformed into an exceedingly swift gold light that left Duan Ling Tian's shoulder and shot into the sky. Whereas that bolt of tribulation lightning that crashed downwards made a turn above Duan Ling Tian and chased towards the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse stopped and stood in midair. As she gazed at the tribulation lightning that flashed over, the little gold mouse's jade green eyes contained slight disdain mixed within. Bang! The aggressively approaching tribulation lightning charged straight towards the little gold mouse. When the tribulation lightning was about to strike onto the little gold mouse's body. Squeak! The little gold mouse hurriedly enlarged herself, then opened her mouth and emitted a sharp cry. Instantly, the air shook and the surrounding airflow started to fly into the little gold mouse's mouth at lightning speed. Whereas the bolt of tribulation lightning was completely swallowed by the little gold mouse. It started with a bang but ended with a whimper. The tribulation lightning that approached aggressively had become the food in the little gold mouse's stomach in the blink of an eye. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse rubbed her expanded little stomach and looked at Duan Ling Tian complacently, as she wanted to seek credit. In next to no time, she noticed that Duan Ling Tian stood there like a block of wood and didn't have the slightest reaction, and she instantly dropped her little head in slight dejection. Bang! Bang! The dark cloud in the horizon shook as the sixth bolt of the 6-9 heavenly tribulation, which was the last bolt of tribulation lightning, had finally condensed into form and descended with a bang. Accompanying its descent was another bolt of tribulation lightning with an equivalent might to it. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse's eyes lit up. Then she flashed out to come close to Duan Ling Tian and waited for the arrival of the two bolts of tribulation lightning. The first bolt of tribulation lightning descended with a bang, and it was like a falling meteorite that aimed straight for Duan Ling Tian. Squeak! However, although the tribulation lightning approached menacingly, along with the little gold mouse opening her mouth, the tribulation lightning was completely swallowed by the little gold mouse into her stomach. Subsequently, the little gold mouse's gaze descended onto the bolt of tribulation lightning in the back. Right when the little gold mouse opened her mouth once more and intended to swallow the last bolt of tribulation lightning. Little gold, leave this bolt of tribulation lightning to me. Duan Ling Tian awoke, and his figure flashed out the instant he opened his eyes. Swift like the wind, violent like lightning. In the blink of an eye, Duan Ling Tian had risen into the air to intercept the last bolt of tribulation lightning that crashed down. Now, I ought to test the might of the lightning force I've just comprehended. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth curled into a smile as his gaze abruptly squinted. With a raise of his hand, his sleeve fluttered as he pointed out, and his origin energy condensed to possess an awe-inspiring might that seemed as if it could point through anything. Tempest Point. The beam of origin energy shot out from the tip of Duan Ling Tian's finger, and it contained strands of azure energy and strands of violet energy twined around it. Yet the violet energy was slightly weak, but not too much weaker. The beam of origin energy swept out accompanied by wind force and lightning force, and it formed the true Tempest Point. Swish! The Tempest Point tore through the sky, emitting ear-piercing howls that deafened the ear, and the airflow in the sky flowed swiftly as he fiercely pointed onto the last bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and the last bolt of tribulation lightning was directly destroyed by Duan Ling Tian's point, and it transformed into nothingness. Whereas Duan Ling Tian's expression remained unchanged, and he was calm and collected. His internal organs only shook slightly. At this moment, in the sky above Duan Ling Tian, another 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes had appeared beside the original 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Amongst the 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that had appeared, the strength of 500 ancient mammoths belonged to his wind force, half-step advanced wind force. The other strength of 500 ancient mammoths belonged to his lightning force, half-step advanced lightning force. Duan Ling Tian had his wish fulfilled and comprehended half-step advanced lightning force. I have to thank the fifth tribulation lightning that was replicated to strike towards Little Gold for being able to comprehend half-step advanced lightning force. When he recalled what happened earlier, at the same time that Duan Ling Tian felt a slight lingering fear in his heart, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. That bolt of tribulation lightning flashed straight towards him, and if the little gold mouse didn't make a move in time, he would die without a doubt. At that moment, he even felt slightly regretful. Why did he have to be arrogant and not utilize a spirit sword since the beginning? Of course, Duan Ling Tian didn't use a spirit sword for the sake of using Tempest Point to go against the tribulation lightning, and to comprehend lightning force while he went against the tribulation lightning. Although Tempest Point could be executed while utilizing a spirit sword, while its might would be great, its effect would be reduced greatly. The Tempest Point was a finger martial skill after all. Using a finger to execute, it was the correct way. Right at the instant when Duan Ling Tian was enveloped by the energy of the tribulation lightning and was about to be struck. Somehow, he obtained a clear comprehension of the characteristics of lightning and every aspect of lightning. This type of comprehension was similar to sudden insight, yet wasn't completely sudden insight. After all, he'd already developed a lightning force seed by himself. Just like that day, he didn't possess any knowledge about wind force, then directly comprehended wind force in a single sudden insight. That was true sudden insight. Whereas this time, Duan Ling Tian relied more on the tribulation lightning and tempest point to be able to allow his lightning force seed to grow into half-step advanced lightning force in a short period of time. Half-step advanced wind force, half-step advanced lightning force. Presently, my tempest point can already be considered to have broken through to the mastery stage. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and he couldn't help but reveal a delighted expression. This was something that he'd never expected earlier. The Tempest Point was a high-grade Earth rank martial skill that came with the Lightning WIRM form, and its might was extraordinary. Whereas the advancement in its stage was instead extremely difficult, and it was different than ordinary high-grade Earth rank martial skills. The advancement of stage of ordinary high-grade Earth rank martial skills was directed at the advancement of the corresponding type of force for it to advance alongside the force. Just like the high-grade Earth rank movement technique, Whirlwind, that Duan Ling Tian cultivated. So long as his wind force advanced to a certain extent, Whirlwind would advance alongside it. Whereas Tempest Point instead required the simultaneous advancement of both wind force and lightning force to complete the advancement of a stage. Just like before, although Duan Ling Tian had comprehended half-step advanced wind force, because he didn't comprehend lightning force, even if he executed Tempest Point, it was an incomplete Tempest Point, and it was even to the extent that it hadn't even stepped into the initial stage. The stage advancement of Tempest Point required both wind force and lightning force to satisfy the conditions at the same time. Just like now, Duan Ling Tian's wind force and lightning force had both stepped into the ranks of half-step advanced force, and the Tempest Point they complemented each other to execute was not inferior to any high-grade Earth rank martial skill in the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor. After all, this was a martial skill that was executed by using two types of force that complemented each other. This type of high-grade Earth rank martial skill was extremely rare. Even within the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, there weren't many martial skills of this kind. Finally, Duan Ling Tian returned to his senses and looked at the little gold mouse that had descended onto his shoulder, then said with a smile, "Little Gold, looks like you're still quite a distance away from breaking through to the next level. I thought you would be able to use the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine to break through." "Big brother Ling Tian, give me a little more." The little gold mouse looked eagerly at Duan Ling Tian, and her pair of jade green eyes were filled with yearning. Later, Duan Ling Tian shook his head, then his brows raised as his gaze shot onto the vast city that was behind the distant clouds and mist. "We ought to enter the city. Once we've settled down in Dragon and Phoenix Academy, I'll give you another 2 drops of Monkey King wine, and it's the last 2 drops. Big brother Ling Tian, you're too stingy." The little gold mouse sent a voice transmission once more, and she was slightly unhappy. "It isn't that I'm stingy, but the Monkey King wine is similar to spirit fruits. Once consumed, consuming it again later on would cause its effects to reduce limitlessly. Even if I give you more, it's just a waste. Moreover, I don't have much Monkey King wine in my possession." Duan Ling Tian shook his head and emitted a bitter laugh. "This little gold really thought that the Monkey King wine in my possession is normal wine, and she can get as much as she wants?" The little gold mouse went silent for a moment when she heard Duan Ling Tian. Then she became joyful once more. She was like a child that hadn't grown up. "Let's go to the city." Duan Ling Tian carried the little gold mouse on his shoulder as he flashed out to head towards the imperial city. Duan Ling Tian only descended from the sky when he arrived outside the gate of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. Meanwhile, many void-prying stage martial artists that similarly descended from the sky had noticed Duan Ling Tian. At the beginning, they didn't pay much attention to it. But when they clearly saw Duan Ling Tian's appearance, they were all dumbstruck. This young man looks to be not even 25 years old, but he's actually already a void-prying stage martial artist? A void-prying stage martial artist couldn't help but gulp down a mouthful of saliva as he spoke in shock. It's impossible. Crazy young master, who's the top amongst the 5 great young masters of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, only barely stepped into the void-prying stage at the age of 29. The companion of the former shook his head and didn't dare believe it. Could it be that he took good care of his appearance? The former was surprised and bewildered. Possibly. The latter nodded seriously. Waves of similar discussions sounded out from the void-prying stage martial artists that saw Duan Ling Tian descend from the sky. Duan Ling Tian naturally heard it and was speechless. Took good care of my appearance? To think that they had the nerve to think of such a thing. However, they've reminded me that within the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, there are indeed many methods of maintaining one's appearance, but most of them are assisted by medicinal pills. If it's a woman or a martial artist that has stepped into the void-prying stage, then it isn't so troublesome. Duan Ling Tian searched through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, and he thought in his heart, that deadbeat dad of mine is over 50 years old, yet looks to be around 30. There are only 2 possibilities. 1. He has consumed medicine that slows down aging of the appearance. 2. He'd once broken through to the void-prying stage. At this time, Duan Ling Tian thought of his deadbeat dad, Duan Ru Feng, at the first possible moment. As for women, perhaps it was because of the various advantages that the heavens bestowed upon men, so the heavens gave women compensation in other aspects. So long as women paid attention and took care normally, they were able to slow down their aging to a certain extent. Just like Duan Ling Tian's mother, Li Ro. Although she was over 40 years old, she looked to be not even 30. This was the advantage women were born with. So long as one's cultivation steps into the void-prying stage, although it isn't able to allow one to become young again, as long as one intends it, then one can use origin energy to control aging to a certain extent. Even to the extent that when some martial artists at the void-prying stage and above were close to the end of their lives after hundreds of years, they still had an appearance of a middle-aged man. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Presently, the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor were endlessly flashing past within his mind. So long as one has the patience to regularly use origin energy to invigorate the skin, flesh, and blood, then the higher the cultivation, the better the effect of the slowing of aging. When the Rebirth Martial Emperor's first lifetime had a cultivation that stepped into the Martial Emperor stage, he was already 120 years old. But at that time, just from his outwards appearance, he was only a middle-aged man around the age of 50. Through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Ling Tian found out of the appearance of the Rebirth Martial Emperor when he lived his first lifetime. As for the second lifetime of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, before he underwent rebirth, he was at the age of 113, and from his outwards appearance, he was only a young man around the age of 30. Duan Ling Tian's mood surged. A 113-year-old person looked like a young man that was around the age of 30. What sort of notion was this? Of course, Duan Ling Tian also knew the reason that the second lifetime of the Rebirth Martial Emperor was able to maintain such a young appearance. The second lifetime of the Rebirth Martial Emperor had stepped into the void-prying stage at the age of 25. Since that moment, the Rebirth Martial Emperor intentionally used origin energy to slow down his aging. After that, the Rebirth Martial Emperor found the treasures left behind by his first lifetime and stepped into the Void Initiation stage, Void Interpretation stage, and Void Transformation stage with extreme speed. Later on, relying on the experiences from his first lifetime, the Rebirth Martial Emperor had even become a martial monarch at the age of 50. At the age of 60, the Rebirth Martial Emperor successfully became a martial emperor. In the Cloud Continent, the accomplishments the Rebirth Martial Emperor's second lifetime attained, especially the time spent to become a martial emperor, could be said to be unprecedented. At least, in the history of Cloud Continent, Such a young martial emperor had never once appeared yet. Once one becomes a martial monarch, even though one can't become young again, one can retain one's youthfulness forever. If the Rebirth Martial Emperor was able to become a martial monarch 10 years earlier, perhaps he would be able to maintain an appearance at the age of 26 or 27. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Martial artists at the void-prying stage and above mostly can't be judged based on their outward appearance or judge their age based on outward appearance. Even if a void-prying stage martial artist didn't intentionally slow down his aging, his formidable origin energy would be able to unintentionally slow down his aging, and his aging would be far slower than ordinary martial artists. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and withdrew his thoughts. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian paid no attention to the surprised gazes from the surroundings and took large strides towards the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. The imperial city of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was boundlessly vast and possessed imposing grandness, and it was like an enormous beast that lay there. The gate that was open wide was like this enormous beast's open bloody mouth that was endlessly swallowing the people that arrived into its belly. At each side of the gate was a row of guards in armor. They stood ramrod straight with gazes that didn't contain any feelings. They gazed forward coldly and indifferently. Duan Ling Tian walked slowly into the city, and the little gold mouse on his shoulder looked around with interest. The cute little gold mouse attracted the attention of many people. These people were mostly women and children. "Mother, what a cute little gold mouse." An immature voice sounded out from nearby, and it was a childish and naive voice. Duan Ling Tian lightly turned around, and he saw a nearby ordinary woman embracing a little boy as she walked. "Young master, children speak carelessly. I hope you can forgive us." The woman hurriedly covered the little boy's mouth, and she had a terrified expression as she bowed and apologized to Duan Ling Tian. "There's no harm done." Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. He naturally guessed why this woman would have this sort of reaction. The violet clothes he wore weren't made of ordinary cloth, but were instead made of special silk that was worth 1,000 gold. Obviously, the woman discerned that he wasn't ordinary from the clothes on his body. Duan Ling Tian instead didn't know that it wasn't only because of the clothes on his body that the woman discerned he wasn't ordinary. The disposition he unintentionally revealed, coupled with his clothes, gave the woman a feeling as if he was a respected existence that she couldn't offend. This world is like this. Ranks are clearly distinguished. Before these ordinary people, I'm extraordinary and superior. But before me, those experts at the void initiation stage and above are similarly superior. The woman's reaction caused to Duan Ling Tian sigh with emotion. He knew that so long as he stood at the highest peak and became superior above all, only then would this feeling disappear. Otherwise, there would always be someone that stood at a position higher than him who would be able to look down upon him. Duan Ling Tian's heart of the strong had unknowingly become even more firm. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse suddenly cried out, and at the same time, a voice transmission entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears. "Big brother Ling Tian, I'm hungry. I want to eat meat. I want to eat meat." Duan Ling Tian lowered his head and rolled his eyes at the little gold mouse. "You're really a glutton, little fellow." Although he said this, Duan Ling Tian still found a restaurant. The restaurant was extremely luxurious and was far from something a small restaurant could compare to. It was only approaching lunchtime now, and the customers in the restaurant had only just started increasing. Duan Ling Tian occupied 2 tables by himself. "Customer, do you need anything?" The restaurant attendant greeted Duan Ling Tian and served him enthusiastically. Duan Ling Tian chose a seat by the window, then pointed at the empty table beside him and said to the attendant, "Fill that table with a variety of fragrant roasted meat. As for this table, give me a few of your restaurant's specialties and a jug of wine." "Yes, customer," the attendant replied and left, and he had a smile on his face. He loved to serve these types of straightforward guests like Duan Ling Tian. As for Duan Ling Tian wanting 2 tables and only ordered roast meat for the other table, he didn't feel it to be strange. He thought that this customer still had companions that hadn't arrived, and these companions of the customer liked to eat meat. Only when the food arrived and he saw the little gold mouse on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder fly out to clean up all the roast meat on the lone table, did the attendant become completely dumbstruck. As an attendant in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City, he felt that he'd seen many aspects of the world. But such extravagance of ordering a table of roast meat for a pet mouse was truly something he'd seen for the first time. The world of the rich is really not something we can understand. Even if it's the young masters and young misses of the Imperial City's great clans, I've seen many of them, yet none of them are so extravagant. The attendant couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Meanwhile, the little gold mouse's table attracted attention as expected. Extravagant. Too extravagant. This is the Drifting Fragrance restaurant, and that table of roasted meat is at least 100 silver. 100 silver only for a pet mouse's meal? Waste, such a waste. I wonder from which clan is this young master from. He's actually so wasteful. Even if he has money, it shouldn't be spent like this. For a time, the crowd of customers in the restaurant whispered in discussion. Huh, little gold. Looks like they think you're only a pet mouse. Duan Ling Tian paid no attention when he heard the whispered discussions of these people, and he couldn't help but tease the little gold mouse via voice transmission. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse cried out twice in displeasure, yet she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to other people and continued eating meat by herself. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. It was unknown what their expressions would be if these people that sighed saying he was extravagant and wasteful knew that this little gold mouse had helped him earn 100 million gold. Almost 1 year ago in Blackwind City, he'd precisely relied on the deterrent force of the little gold mouse to force the Ma clan and Huang clan to hand over a large sum of money. That large sum of money was a total of 100 million and a few 100,000 gold. 100 silver for a table of food. Duan Ling Tian didn't mind. 100 silver was equivalent to 2 gold. Compared to the gold that the little gold mouse had earned for him, it was simply a drop in the ocean that was not worth mentioning. Along with the passage of time, the restaurant was crowded with customers and there were no empty seats. Many people could only sigh and leave because there were no seats. Most of these people that left glanced enviously and jealously at the little gold mouse that occupied a table by herself, and they all felt that they lived their entire lifetimes inferior to a pet mouse. Duan Ling Tian was still drinking wine and eating when a few figures approached, and it caused him to frown. Duan Ling Tian lazily raised his head, and he noticed a young man in embroidered clothes was bringing along 2 middle-aged men to walk over. The gaze of the young man in embroidered clothes descended on the little gold mouse, and he was slightly surprised. Kid, this is your pet. Behind the young man in embroidered clothes, a middle-aged man took a step forward then looked at Duan Ling Tian before speaking in a low voice. Go accompany your pet. Give this table to my young master. This is your reward. As the middle-aged man spoke, he had an aloft, imposing manner, and he casually tossed out a gold bill. Right at this moment, Duan Ling Tian raised his hand to receive the gold bill, then glanced at the denomination atop it, and he was slightly surprised. A 100 gold bill. Truly generous. Scram since you've accepted the money. When he saw Duan Ling Tian was surprised by a 100 gold bill, the corners of the middle-aged man's man curled into a disdainful expression, and he grunted coldly as he shouted in a low voice. Slap. Duan Ling Tian's gaze suddenly squinted, and a stack of gold bills appeared in his hand with a raise of his hand. This is 10,000 gold. Take the money and scram. I want you to really roll your way out. As Duan Ling Tian spoke, he looked up at the middle-aged man and grinned. His smile was filled with evilness. Want to compete in wealth with me? 10,000 gold. Duan Ling Tian's voice wasn't soft, and it attracted many gazes. In next to no time, when their gazes touched the young man in embroidered clothes, all their gazes slightly shook as if they'd seen something terrifying. Duan Ling Tian naturally noticed these gazes. Obviously, the background of this young man in embroidered clothes wasn't simple. However, was Duan Ling Tian the type of person that would throw his dignity beneath another's feet and allow another to trample upon him due to being afraid of another's background? The answer was no. Kid, the middle-aged man's face sank when he saw Duan Ling Tian was so insensible. Then he shouted in a cold voice. Do you know who my young master is? Let me tell you, my young master isn't someone a lowly commoner like you can offend. If you're sensible, then quickly K off, or it might be too late to regret. Too late to regret. Duan Ling Tian put away the 10,000 gold in his hand, then glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man that was bloated with arrogance, and his face held a smile since the beginning. Then I'm curious, exactly how will you make me feel it's too late for regret? Duan Ling Tian's mood was extremely bad because his meal was disturbed. Kid, you're courting death. The middle-aged man's face sank as he shouted out explosively. Then his body inclined forward as his hand descended like fans, enveloping Duan Ling Tian as it approached menacingly. Above him, 1,500 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. This middle-aged man was obviously a half-step void stage martial artist. Meanwhile, the customers in the restaurant that saw this scene couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. They sighed that Duan Ling Tian was too arrogant and didn't know how to bide his time and had bitten off more than he could chew. Half-step void stage? The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth curled into an arc when he saw the middle-aged man attacking him, and there was slight disdain mixed within the arc. Bang! The middle-aged man's palm descended with raging origin energy twined around it, and it carried the force to split a mountain as it flashed towards Duan Ling Tian's chest, desiring to blast Duan Ling Tian out of the restaurant with a single slap. Who is courting death is still uncertain. Right at this crucial moment, Duan Ling Tian spoke with a slightly lazy tone. Subsequently, the people present noticed to their shock that above the violet-clothed young man that spoke lazily, 2,000 ancient mammoths had appeared instantly. In the next moment, they saw the young man casually raise his hand to latch onto the middle-aged man's hand like an eagle catching a chick. Go down. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian revealed a cultivation that completely crushed the middle-aged man, and after he easily latched onto the middle-aged man's hand, he casually threw the middle-aged man out the window. After the middle-aged man was thrown out, the origin energy on his body raged, causing him to shake in midair, and he seemed as if he wanted to adjust the way his body fell. Humph! A wisp of disdain appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth, and he successively pointed out with his finger with a raise of his hand. Swish, 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 swish. In an instant, numerous powerful fingers that were condensed purely from origin energy howled as they flew out and flashed straight towards the middle-aged man. Duan Ling Tian held back in his attack. The middle-aged man reacted and didn't dare make any rash movements, and he allowed his body to fall while maintaining its original position. He knew clearly in his heart that once he moved rashly, those fingers formed from origin energy that shot down would strike him without mercilessly and penetrate his body. Bang! The middle-aged man, whose body was stiff and was terrified to the point he broke out in cold sweat, fiercely fell onto the street outside the restaurant. He fell flat on his face and was in an extremely sorry state. As expected, this scene drew the attention of the people passing by to come spectate. Within the restaurant, after he taught the middle-aged man a lesson, Duan Ling Tian didn't even look the other middle-aged man and the young man in embroidered clothes in the face. At this moment, the pupils of the young man in embroidered, who'd maintained his composure all along, couldn't help but constrict, and he glanced deeply at Duan Ling Tian. Brother, I never expected that your age is so young, yet you're already a void-prying stage martial artist. Admirable, admirable. Duan Ling Tian disregarded the young man in embroidered clothes. The young man was slightly embarrassed. Then he forced out a trace of a smile on his face. I'm the G Clan's G Feng. I hope that brother can forgive my subordinate for offending you. Can you not disturb my meal? Duan Ling Tian raised his head and glanced impatiently at Ji Feng. Ji Feng's expression froze. Then he took a deep breath and didn't flare up. I'm sorry. I'll leave now. As he spoke, Ji Feng brought along the other middle-aged man and left the restaurant. The farce ended here, and it caused the people in the restaurant to feel slightly dissatisfied. I thought that Ji Clan's young master Feng would avenge his subordinate, but I never expected he would instead leave with his tail between his legs. Truly disappointing. According to me, this Ji Clan's young master Feng is an intelligent person. This young man's cultivation has already stepped into the void-prying stage at such a young age. Obviously, he's a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy this time. I wonder which power recommended him. This young man looks to be not more than 25 years old. Even if he's good at taking care of his appearance, I'm afraid he wouldn't be more than 30 years old. Such natural talent isn't inferior to the 5 great young masters in the slightest, yet I've actually never heard of him before. The crowd of customers in the restaurant whispered in discussion, and they were all shocked by Duan Ling Tian's cultivation. As for Duan Ling Tian, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people. Not more than 30 years old, Duan Ling Tian felt speechless in his heart. Outside the restaurant, Jiyu had a calm expression as he brought along the 2 middle-aged men and walked off into the distance, and it was as if he'd already tossed the incident that occurred earlier to the back of his head. Young master, that kid is too arrogant. Could it be that we're just going to let it go like that? The middle-aged man that was thrown out of the window by Duan Ling Tian earlier had an enraged expression as he spoke while gnashing his teeth. Humph. Ji Feng glanced coldly at the middle-aged man and said indifferently, I won't stop you if you want to go back and teach him a lesson. But let me tell you beforehand, even if you're killed by him, our Ji clan won't stand up for you. The middle-aged man was instantly afraid when he heard this. His head drooped, and he didn't dare speak again. Next time, don't use force to solve every problem. Use your brain more often. Ji Feng taught the middle-aged man a lesson. That violet-clothed young man possessed a cultivation at the void-prying stage at such a young age. He's surely a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy this time. With his strength, it isn't difficult for him to become eminent in the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Even if this type of person can't become a friend, he absolutely must not become an enemy. Moreover, do you think that a power that can foster a young expert like this is simple? As he finished speaking, Jiyu's tone obviously contained fear. Ji Feng's words caused the 2 middle-aged men to nod repeatedly, and they felt heartfelt admiration. Especially that middle-aged man that was making a row about being not resigned. His face flushed crimson and felt that he'd lived these years for nothing, as he was unable to see things as clearly as his young master. However, he has probably just arrived at the Imperial City. I guess he will go register himself at the Dragon and Phoenix Academy later. Let's go have a meal first, then go register at the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Young geniuses that came from all around the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I can't wait. Ji Feng's face revealed a smile as he muttered. The other people ought to not be as abnormal as that fellow from before, right? Half an hour later, Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse successively finished cleaning up their tables, then paid the bill and left. Do you know how to go to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy? Duan Ling Tian looked at the attendant and asked. The attendant was reverent and respectful towards Duan Ling Tian now, and he gave Duan Ling Tian the directions respectfully, not daring to be rude in the slightest. What a joke! The young man before him was a void-prying stage expert. Although he'd seen many void-prying stage experts, it was the first time he'd seen such a young void-prying stage expert. Moreover, the young man had just thrown the subordinate by the Ji clan's young master Feng's side out the window, and his fierceness incurred reverence. Okay, after Duan Ling Tian found out the location of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, he nodded and looked at the 100 gold on the table from before. Take this gold bill to pay the bill and keep the change. I never imagined that I'd only just arrived at the Imperial City and there's already someone treating me to a meal. Duan Ling Tian stood up as he spoke, and he left the restaurant after the little gold mouse leaped onto his shoulder. That 100 gold was precisely the gold left behind by the subordinate of that young master Feng of the Ji clan. Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. The attendant's face flushed when he heard Duan Ling Tian, and he was extremely excited. 100 gold. It was equivalent to 10,000 silver. It was equivalent to his salary for tens of years. Under numerous jealous and envious gazes, the attendant took the gold bill and went to pay the bill. That young expert really came for the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. I originally thought that 1 year from now, the 5 young genius representatives of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that would head to the Darkstone Empire would be occupied by the 5 great young masters. Now it would seem that another black horse has appeared. 5 great young masters? According to me, the black horse in the younger generations of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom isn't just that young expert from before. Supposedly, the seven-star sword sect that has already been annihilated has a disciple that survived. And with that person's natural talent, I'm afraid he has already broken through to the void prying stage now. That seven-star sword sect disciples seemed to be called Duan Ling Tian, and he'd once successively defeated the Saber Young Master and Zither Young Master. Most importantly, his age is far younger than any one of the 5 great young masters. In terms of natural talent, no one in the history of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom can surpass him. The crowd of people in the restaurant discussed animatedly, and their words were filled with high praise towards Duan Ling Tian. However, even if his natural talent is great, even if he has already broken through to the void prying stage now, would he dare make an appearance? The Azure Forest Trisect have been racking their brains trying to find him, as they want to drag him out and kill him. That Duan Ling Tian is so young, yet he had already caused that Azure Forest Trisect to be alarmed. I can imagine that if he can live on properly and mature, he'll surely become the nightmare of the Azure Forest Trisect. If I was him, I'd lay dormant, and before I mature, I'll absolutely not appear under the eyes of that Azure Forest Trisect. I instead hope he can come out. In the path towards the selection of the candidates for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, I'm extremely curious about how far exactly a monstrous genius like him can go. I'm extremely curious as well. Duan Ling Tian naturally didn't know that the crowd of people within the restaurant he just left were discussing him. Currently, he's already arrived outside the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Duan Ling Tian stood on the open ground, and he could see many young geniuses walking over here one after the other from all directions. Excitement and arrogance was contained between their brows. So many people. They're all people that have been recommended by the various powers of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Ling Tian was shocked when he saw so many people, yet he understood with a quick thought. These few days are the last few days for the young geniuses of the various powers to register for the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Many people ought to only be coming to register during these few days. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and his gaze shot ahead. There was an arched gate over there. At the side of the gate stood a tall stele, and 4 large words were engraved in exquisite writing on the stele: Dragon and Phoenix Academy. These 4 words were engraved in one go without stopping, and they're filled with a peerlessly fierce aura. I presume it was personally engraved by an expert. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Presently, there were 3 old men sitting behind stone tables that were situated before the arched gate, and a brush and ink were placed neatly on the stone table. The young geniuses that gushed over from all directions arrived one after the other before the 3 old men. Then they withdrew their proof and passed it over for the 3 old men to inspect. After they inspected that nothing was wrong, the 3 old men would complete the registration for them and give them a command token. The people that obtained the command token would jubilantly pass through the arched gate and walk into the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. There are really many people. Duan Ling Tian looked at the 3 extremely long lines before him and couldn't help but shake his head. Then his body slightly inclined forward as he intended to line up. Right at this moment, roar! A loud roar sounded out by Duan Ling Tian's ear, and it was like a thunderclap. Not only did it alarm Duan Ling Tian, even the young geniuses that were lining up couldn't help but turn around and look. Duan Ling Tian turned around. With a glance, he saw an enormous leopard walking over here, and everywhere it passed, everybody would move away. This leopard's entire body was covered in snow-white fur, like a white flame that was burning, and every time it opened its blood mouth to emit a low roar, it would make others to feel coldness that came from the bottom of their hearts. Snow leopard. Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised as he never expected there were people that used fierce beasts to move around in the Imperial City. The snow leopard was a 7th level nascent soul stage fierce beast. In Duan Ling Tian's heart, 2 words emerged at the first possible moment. Acting cool. It's the Yin clan's Yinjia. Yinjia, the 2nd young master of the Yin clan. In terms of natural talent, he's only inferior to the 5 great young masters of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I've heard of him since long ago. Since he's able to tame a snow leopard, the strength of this Yin clan's 2nd young master is surely at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. This Yin clan's 2nd young master, Yinjia, is 29 this year. Supposedly, his cultivation has already stepped into the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Many people whispered in discussion, and it also allowed Duan Ling Tian to find out about the identity of the person that had arrived. In clan, Duan Ling Tian's brows raised, as he'd never heard of this clan. However, it may be assumed that it was probably a clan in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city, and it wasn't an ordinary clan. Duan Ling Tian was able to discern this from the fearful gazes of many young geniuses. Haha, Inja, you've come really early. Right at this moment, a hearty laughter sounded out. Accompanied by this hearty laughter was a shocking beast roar. An enormous wolf with black striped fur appeared, and its pair of blood-red eyes stared fixedly at the snow leopard as if it might pounce on and battle the snow leopard at any moment. Black striped wolf. Many people emitted surprised exclaims. Black striped wolf, a 7th-level nascent soul stage fierce beast that was even more ferocious than a snow leopard. Another formidable fierce beast. Many young geniuses looked at the person on the back of the black striped wolf with envy. Duan Ling Tian looked over as well. This was a young man that wore black clothes and was around the age of 30. His appearance was ordinary, yet overbearing arrogance was emitted from between his brows. Half-step void stage. Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force stretched out and detected this person's cultivation at the first possible moment. It's the Sima clan's Sima Yang. Sima Yang is a genius martial artist of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom as well. In terms of natural talent, he's similar to Inja and is only inferior to the 5 great young masters. Someone recognized the black-clothed young man and exclaimed in a low voice. Sima Yang, it's truly a coincidence. I can even encounter you when I'm just going to register. Inja grunted coldly, and he was obviously not on good terms with Sima Yang. As soon as he finished speaking, Inja disregarded Sima Yang and directed the snow leopard to continue towards the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Everywhere he passed, all the young geniuses moved aside. In next to no time, the snow leopard beneath Inja had arrived before Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian just happened to be standing in the empty space before the gate. At this moment, Inja had 2 choices. The first, go around Duan Ling Tian's left. The second, go around Duan Ling Tian's right. After all, this empty space was extremely spacious. But Inja didn't choose and instead glanced coldly at Duan Ling Tian before coldly shouting, "Where did this little fledgling kid come from? K off." Duan Ling Tian glanced at Inja indifferently, then paid no attention to him, and it was as if Duan Ling Tian entirely didn't hear Inja's words. Inja's face sank. Roar! The snow leopard beneath Inja seemed to have noticed its master's rage and howled at Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian frowned and finally spoke lazily. The road is so wide. Don't you know how to go around? Go around. When Inja heard Duan Ling Tian, his face that was already gloomy couldn't help but emit an expression of ridicule. Fledgling kid, I Inja never go around. If you're sensible, then quickly K off. Otherwise, I'll make my snow leopard directly press forward over you. His words were filled with a threatening intent. Duan Ling Tian's calm expression finally sank. Make the snow leopard press forward over me? This Inja really thinks he's the judge that decided life and death? Then I really want to know how you will make your snow leopard press forward over me. The gloominess on Duan Ling Tian's face vanished in an instant, and replacing it was a brilliant smile. Duan Ling Tian's words caused Inja to be unable to refrain from frowning. As the second young master of the Yin clan and a martial artist that possessed extraordinary natural talent in the martial Tao, it was naturally impossible for him to be an idiot. Presently, there were only 2 possibilities as to why the violet-clothed young man before him still dared be like this after knowing of his identity. The first, this was a hot-headed fellow that completely didn't know what status the Yin clan possessed in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. The second, this was an existence with a shocking background and was unafraid of his Yin clan. For a time, he instead started to hesitate. Roar! Right when Inja was hesitating, another beast roar sounded out. A young man in embroidered clothes sat on an enormous tiger that was covered in sky blue fur and walked over. Everywhere the tiger passed, the people on the road would move aside. Ji Feng. The brows of Sima Yang, who sat on the black striped wolf, raised up, and he greeted the young man in embroidered clothes. It's him. Duan Ling Tian recognized the person that had arrived. It was precisely the young man in embroidered clothes that he'd met in the restaurant earlier. At that time, he'd tossed the simple-minded subordinate of the young man out the window. Duan Ling Tian originally thought that the young man would stand up for his subordinate. But unexpectedly, the young man actually left directly. At that time, Duan Ling Tian knew that this person was one who was extremely scheming, and before the young man fully understood Duan Ling Tian's background, it would be absolutely impossible for the young man to make trouble for Duan Ling Tian. This sort of person was extremely terrifying. It's the Ji clan's Ji Feng. In terms of natural talent, this Ji Feng is a figure on par with Yin Zhe and Sima Yang. His age is only 29, yet his cultivation has already stepped into the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Many young geniuses recognized Ji Feng. Yin Zhe, you should obediently go around. Huh. Ji Feng imperceptibly nodded with a smile to Duan Ling Tian. Then he looked at Yin Zhe, who rode the snow leopard, and stood before Duan Ling Tian, and he laughed loudly. There was no lack of ridicule within his laughter. Obviously, Ji Feng didn't get along with Yin Zhe. Sima Yang looked at Yin Zhe as well, and the corners of his mouth curled into a slight ridiculing smile. Yin Zhe, go around obediently. Do you really think that the road before the Dragon and Phoenix Academy's gate belongs to your Yin clan? Humph. Yin Zhe was originally suspicious of Duan Ling Tian's background and identity, but now that he was ridiculed by his old rivals, his face instantly flushed red, and he was enraged to the extreme, causing him to completely lose all reason. Kid, I'll give you one last chance. K off. Otherwise, I'll take your life. Yin Zhe's icy cold eyes stared at Duan Ling Tian as he shouted sternly. At this moment, he'd vented all his rage onto Duan Ling Tian. Want my life? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and said indifferently. There's a large empty space here, and the spectating young geniuses can bear witness that I was standing here first. As the saying goes, first come, first serve. I've come first, and you came later. Logically speaking, it ought to be you that goes around. Now, you actually want my life for this trivial matter? As Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, although his tone was still calm, his eyes already flickered with frightful cold lights that were difficult to notice. Duan Ling Tian was enraged. Has this young man gone mad? Does he know who he's talking to? He's also a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy? I wonder which power recommended this person. Does that power have no other people? A little youth like this is able to be recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy as well. He's going to suffer. Of course, Yin Zhe's temper is famous for being bad. Since this young man doesn't know how to appreciate the kindness Yin Zhe has shown him today, he will surely completely enrage Yin Zhe. The surrounding crowd of young geniuses whispered in discussion. Yin Zhe, I think this brother speaks logically. First come, first serve should be stressed on for everything. Right at this moment, the enormous tiger Ji Feng rode slowly walked over, and when it arrived near Duan Ling Tian, it went around him. After that, Ji Feng looked at Yin Zhe, and the ridicule on his face remained the same. Ji Feng, you're really getting more stupid the longer you live. Yin Zhe glanced coldly at Ji Feng, then his gaze descended onto Duan Ling Tian before saying with a sneer, You actually went around for a little kid like this? Today, I'll let you see how I, Yin Zhe, will make this person that can make you go around him to obediently lie down. As he finished speaking, Yin Zhe's tone was filled with ruthlessness. Press forward. Yin Zhe shouted out with a low voice and ordered the snow leopard. Along with Yin Zhe's low shout, the gazes the crowd of young geniuses around the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy shot at Duan Ling Tian were filled with pity. They all felt that Duan Ling Tian was about to suffer. Roar! The snow leopard raised its head and roared explosively, and the might of its roar shook the skies. Its enormous body moved, charging towards Duan Ling Tian as it opened its bloody mouth and fiercely bit towards Duan Ling Tian. When the snow leopard was about to bite Duan Ling Tian, squeak! The fluffy fur on the little gold mouse that stood on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder instantly stood up, and she emitted a sharp cry that was filled with extreme rage. Whereas right at this moment, an unbelievable scene appeared, and the people present were all dumbstruck when they saw the scene before them. Some people even stretched out their hands to fiercely rub their eyes as if they were confirming that they weren't seeing things. They saw that along with the little gold mouse's sharp cry, the snow leopard that charged at Duan Ling Tian in full fury had instantly stopped on the spot. In the next moment, the enormous body of the snow leopard shook, and it actually lay flat on the ground and shivered. Whereas Inja, who was on the back of the snow leopard, wasn't careful and was thrown off the snow leopard, and he fell to the floor in a sorry state. Roar! The snow leopard lay on the ground, and its head stuck closely to the ground as if it was a commoner that submitted itself to the emperor. Squeak, squeak. The little gold mouse stood on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder and lifted up her front limb like a human. Then she proudly held up her head as if she was an exalted emperor. As a demon beast, she only had to reveal her aura to a fierce beast, and it would be sufficient to make the fierce beast submit in terror. This scene caused everyone to be dumbstruck. A formidable fierce beast snow leopard actually prostrated itself before a pet mouse? Simply unbelievable. Since when have snow leopards become so cowardly? Isn't that just a cute pet mouse? It only let out a cry, and the snow leopard was like a mouse that had seen a cat, and it directly prostrated itself. Oomph. This snow leopard has really brought shame to all nascent soul stage fierce beasts. Many spectating young geniuses were contemptuous towards the snow leopard's reaction. Only Ji Feng and Sima Yang had a serious expression, and their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the little gold mouse on Duan Ling Tian's shoulder. They knew that the little gold mouse that stood on the young man's shoulder was absolutely not a pet mouse. What a joke! Could a pet mouse cause the fierce beasts beneath them to become restless? Earlier, when the little gold mouse emitted the cry that was directed at the snow leopard, they felt the fierce beasts beneath them become restless and uneasy. If it wasn't for them calming the fierce beasts beneath them would have already gone mad and fled. Ji Feng, you know him? Sima Yang looked at Ji Feng and asked via voice transmission. Obviously, he discerned that Ji Feng's actions earlier were completely leading Inja step by step, causing Inja to lose all reason and make a move against that mysterious violet-clothed young man. Not really. I met him at a restaurant an hour ago. Ji Feng shook his head and replied via voice transmission. At the same time, Ji Feng looked at Inja, who stared blankly with a dumbstruck expression, and the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile as he added fuel to the fire. As expected, the slave beast is just like the master. Inja, you should apologize to this little brother. In this way, perhaps he will be magnanimous and forgive your actions. Slave beast was the name people on Cloud Continent addressed demon beasts and fierce beasts that were enslaved. Of course, a demon beast that wasn't enslaved like the little gold mouse who was taken to be a friend by Duan Ling Tian wasn't considered as a slave beast. This Ji Feng. Duan Ling Tian frowned as he was able to discern that this Ji Feng wanted to see the world burn. As expected, he's a scheming person. Moreover, Duan Ling Tian noticed that after Inja heard Ji Feng's words, he quickly recovered from his shock. When he looked at Duan Ling Tian, his eyes were filled with ruthlessness and shame. You can't afford to offend some people. Duan Ling Tian spoke indifferently when he saw Inja was about to flare up. Kid, you're courting death. Inja shouted out explosively, and his voice was filled with extreme rage. Swoosh. At the same time, Inja's body shook and seemed to transform into a cannonball that charged straight towards Duan Ling Tian. Not only that, as Inja's figure flashed out, his right hand formed a fist, then origin energy skyrocketed atop it before flashing out to head straight towards Duan Ling Tian's chest. Whoosh. In the sky, 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form and dashed out in tow. Obviously, Inja attacked out under extreme rage and had exploded forth with him full strength. Idiot. Duan Ling Tian never expected that after the snow leopard was terrorized by the little gold mouse to lay down, Inja would still dare attack him, and his face instantly sank as cold lights shot out from his eyes. At the same time that he shouted out coldly, Duan Ling Tian moved. Tempest Point. With a raise of his hand, Duan Ling Tian pointed out with his finger, and he even didn't use wind force or lightning force, using the point force that was purely condensed from origin energy to whistle out and intercept Inja's fist that approached in full fury. Swish! A deafening piercing howl suddenly sounded out. The point force that was condensed from the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths broke through the origin energy on Inja's fist like sweeping through dry leaves, and it easily touched onto his fist. Hiss! Duan Ling Tian's point force that was condensed from origin energy pierced into Inja's fist as if it pierced into tofu. At the instant a small hole was pierced on Inja's fist and fresh blood splattered out. Inja's shrill cry sounded out alongside it, and it was extremely miserable. Subsequently, Inja stretched out his other hand to tightly hold onto his bloody right hand. At this moment, Inja's body shivered as cold sweat poured out of him. No, impossible. As he looked at the sky above Duan Ling Tian, at the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that gradually dispersed, Inja shook his head ceaselessly and was unwilling to believe that all this was real. This young man that looked to be not more than 25 years old was actually a first-level void-prying stage expert. Inja, who'd stopped his bleeding using origin energy with great difficulty, had an expression that was ghastly pale to the extreme. After he clearly sensed his own injuries, his face changed again, becoming exceedingly savage. You crippled my hand. You crippled my hand. The Yin clan won't let you off. The Yin clan won't let you off. Inja's voice contained traces of trembling mixed within because he's noticed that his right hand was completely crippled. The origin energy point force of the young man had easily crippled 2 of his fingers' bones, then bore into the bone of his arm without slowing down in the slightest, and it completely minced his marrow and everything within the bone. Presently, even if he possessed a grade 4 great recovery pill, it would be impossible for his hand to be healed. Duan Ling Tian had a calm gaze when faced with Inja, who had a warped and savage expression, and he said indifferently, "I told you before you attacked. You can't afford to offend some people. Once you've offended them, you have to pay the price." You? Inja's face flushed red, and only now did he recall that the young man had indeed said this. However, at that time, he was enraged to the extreme, so how would he possibly listen to what Duan Ling Tian said? He only thought that Duan Ling Tian was being deceptive. "You're dead. You're dead." Inja hatefully glanced at Duan Ling Tian. Then he leaped onto the back of the snow leopard that lay on the ground and looked at the snow leopard as he shouted coldly, "Get up. Do you think we haven't lost enough face?" However, the snow leopard utterly paid no attention to him. It just lay there and shivered as it was facing the aura of a demon beast that the little gold mouse emitted. Useless trash. When he saw the snow leopard disregarding him, Inja's face was extremely unsightly, and with a raise of his left hand, a spirit saber had appeared in his hand. Wham! The spirit saber descended and directly pierced into the snow leopard's skull, killing it. Perhaps, even until death, the snow leopard never imagined that its owner would suddenly kill it. "I won't let you off. I absolutely won't." Inja glanced viciously at Duan Ling Tian once again. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into a toxic viper that was waiting for an opportunity to swallow Duan Ling Tian up. Subsequently, Inja's figure flashed to leave the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, and he vanished at the end of the road. Obviously, he'd returned to the Yin clan. Duan Ling Tian paid no attention towards Inja's threats. Yin clan. In the past, the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were at the top. And besides the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family, there wasn't a single power formed from a clan that was able to compare with any one of the 5 great sects of then. Presently, 2 of the 5 great sects had been successively annihilated, and the 3 remaining sects had combined together to form a formidable power that wasn't much inferior to the imperial family. The Azure Forest Trisect. Whereas the Azure Forest Trisect undoubtedly wished for nothing more than to kill this survivor of the 7-star sword sect, Duan Ling Tian, and celebrate afterwards. Duan Ling Tian daring to stand here today meant that he was mentally prepared to face the Azure Forest Trisect. He wasn't even afraid of the Azure Forest Trisect. Would he be afraid of Yin clan? After Inja left, Duan Ling Tian returned to his senses and intended to line up to register himself. Presently, the young geniuses everywhere Duan Ling Tian passed moved aside, and in the end, they parted ways to show him to the front, allowing him to register first. No matter where, experts were able to obtain the respect of others and obtain some privileges. Void prying stage. He's actually a void prying stage expert. At this moment, besides Ji Feng, the gazes of the crowd of young geniuses, including Sima Yang, were filled with shock and astonishment when they looked at Duan Ling Tian. A young man that looked to be not over 25 years of age possessed a cultivation at the first level of the void prying stage. Such accomplishments were extremely shocking. Ji Feng, you knew before this? Sima Yang looked at Ji Feng, and when he saw Ji Feng lightly nodding, the corners of his mouth twitched. You really ked Inju over. One of Inju's hands is crippled, and I'm afraid he'll have no fate with the few spaces to head to the Darkstone Empire. Along with Sima Yang speaking, the gazes of most of the young geniuses descended onto Ji Feng, and they felt a chill run down their spine. If it was said that the violet-clothed young man that crippled Inju's hand was a formidable, fierce tiger that could annihilate everything, then this Ji Feng was a venomous snake that killed others without a trace. The former was much more terrifying to them. With a few words, he'd crippled the number one genius of the Yin clan's current younger generation. How many people in the world were capable of this? Under the gazes of everyone present, Duan Ling Tian walked step by step to arrive before a stone table outside the Dragon and Phoenix Academy gate. Senior. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian noticed that the old man behind the stone table was looking at him with a dumbstruck expression, and he couldn't help but remind him. The old man recovered from his shock, and only now did he realize his loss of composure, causing him to go red in embarrassment. Then he stretched out his hand. Young man, your proof of recommendation. Presently, after the old man had seen Duan Ling Tian's cultivation, his tone was slightly courteous. Senior, this is my proof of recommendation. Duan Ling Tian raised his hand and withdrew the proof from his spatial ring, and it was precisely the proof that the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor gave him that day. When they saw the old man receive the proof in Duan Ling Tian's hand, some of the surrounding young geniuses couldn't help but move closer, and their gazes shot straight towards the proof of recommendation that was gradually opening in the hands of the old man. Even if it was the young geniuses in the outer circle, they all had curious expressions. I wonder what power he's from. Ji Feng's eyes squinted, and he was filled with curiosity towards Duan Ling Tian's identity in his heart. That Sima Yang now looked at the scene before him with interest as well. He was similarly curious. Crimson Sky Kingdom? You're a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Finally, the old man found out Duan Ling Tian's background from the proof of recommendation Duan Ling Tian had passed over, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Crimson Sky Kingdom. Although the old man's voice wasn't loud, it seemed exceptionally clear under the silent atmosphere in the surroundings. He's from the Crimson Sky Kingdom? I know the Crimson Sky Kingdom. It's one of the kingdoms amongst the numerous kingdoms that are subordinate to our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I've never heard of any extraordinary figure coming from there in the recent years, yet I never imagined that such a monster has appeared this time. A small kingdom is able to give birth to such a terrifying genius martial artist? Unbelievable. I thought earlier that he's a member of some reclusive power in our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. At that same time that the surrounding crowd of young geniuses sighed with emotion upon finding out about Duan Ling Tian's background, they couldn't help but be slightly disappointed. Duan Ling Tian's background was inconsistent to their expectations. After all, the shock Duan Ling Tian gave them earlier was too great, possessing a cultivation that had stepped into the void prying stage at such a young age. In terms of natural talent, he was even not inferior to the most outstanding of the 5 great young masters of their Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's younger generation. So he's only a person from a small kingdom. Ji Feng's brows raised, and he thought in his heart, looks like I was too sensitive. But even if he's from a small kingdom, his accomplishments in the future will surely not be small with his natural talent. Such a person can only be a friend and not an enemy. A person from a small kingdom? Sima Yang was slightly surprised. In next to no time, the people present were deathly silent once again. only because that the old man who received Duan Ling Tian's proof of recommendation had spoken once more. You're called Duan Ling Tian. The old man's voice was filled with surprise and astonishment. Duan Ling Tian. When this name was called out by the old man, after the atmosphere at the scene went silent, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, and the scene completely went into an uproar. Duan Ling Tian? Isn't Duan Ling Tian the peerless genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect? Supposedly, when the Seven-Star Sword sect was annihilated, the higher-ups of the Seven-Star Sword sect put their lives on the line to send Duan Ling Tian out, and took him to be the future hope of the Seven-Star Sword sect. Wouldn't he that Duan Ling Tian that the Azure Forest Trisect wished for nothing more than to kill and celebrate after the deed is done, right? It wouldn't be such a coincidence. Isn't he from a small kingdom? Perhaps he's someone with the same name. Under the waves of discussion, the gazes of the young geniuses present at the scene shot onto Duan Ling Tian, and they seemed like they wanted to obtain Duan Ling Tian's confirmation. The three old men that were in charge of registration show their gazes as Duan Ling Tian now as well. Duan Ling Tian noticed the old man before him looking at him, yet hesitating to speak. Duan Ling Tian guessed what the old man was thinking and nodded lightly. Right, I'm Duan Ling Tian. Besides being a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, I'm also an inner court disciple of the Seven-Star Sword sect. Duan Ling Tian's words had undoubtedly confirmed his identity. It's really him. No wonder his natural talent is so terrifying. So he's that Duan Ling Tian. I was thinking where so many monsters came from in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. So it turns out that he's the peerless genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect, the existence that had once successively defeated the Saber Young Master and Zither Young Master. Instantly, the gazes the young geniuses in the surroundings shot at Duan Ling Tian were filled with excitement. He's that Duan Ling Tian. Ji Feng and Sima Yang looked at each other with tacit understanding, and when they looked at each other in the eye, they saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Ji Feng, I truly never imagined that we'd be able to see the rumored monstrous genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect. Sima Yang's voice transmission was filled with an emotional sigh. Yeah, I truly never imagined it. Ji Feng had a complicated gaze. He's too rash. If I were him, I'd conceal myself and wait until I possessed sufficient strength before appearing before the eyes of the world. For the sake of preventing future troubles, it would be impossible for those members of the Azure Forest Trisect after he appeared in the Imperial City in such a grand fashion. Sima Yang sighed. Everyone has his own aspirations. Since he dared come here, it shows that he's already prepared and isn't afraid of that Azure Forest Trisect. Looks like there will be shows to see in the future. Ji Feng's voice transmission was filled with anticipation. This is your command token. The old man passed the command token in his hand to Duan Ling Tian, and at the same time, he reminded Duan Ling Tian via voice transmission. Duan Ling Tian, I'm afraid it won't be long before the news of your appearance in the Imperial City will spread to the Azure Forest Trisect. I suggest that in the next year, unless it's a mission the Academy asks you to complete. Otherwise, you better not leave the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. In the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, even if the Azure Forest Trisect is any bolder, they still wouldn't dare do anything to you directly. The old man's tone was serious, and his words were filled with confidence towards the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. The Dragon and Phoenix Academy was the academy that was specially established by the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family to select the young geniuses for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, and it was protected by the Imperial family. Even though the Azure Forest Trisect was formidable and very influential, it wasn't enough when standing before the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family. Only because the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family possessed an expert at the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage or above, whereas the Azure Forest Trisect didn't. Thank you for the reminder, Senior. Duan Ling Tian's heart felt warm when he heard the old man, and he walked into the Dragon and Phoenix Academy after receiving the command token. Not long after he walked past the arched gate and entered the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, a middle-aged man walked over to greet him, and the middle-aged man glanced indifferently at Duan Ling Tian. Wait a moment. This middle-aged man had a stiff expression and his tone was extremely icy cold. Obviously, he didn't know of the incident that occurred outside the academy earlier and didn't know of Duan Ling Tian's identity. Otherwise, he would probably find it difficult to maintain his composure. Duan Ling Tian nodded and waited on the spot. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian saw two people walking over shoulder to shoulder, and it was precisely Ji Feng and Sima Yang. The three of them quickly gathered together. "You three newcomers, follow me," the middle-aged man called Duan Ling Tian and the others before walking towards the inner parts of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. "I truly never imagined that you're actually that peerless genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect, Duan Ling Tian." Duan Ling Tian followed behind the middle-aged man when a voice suddenly sounded out by his ears, and the voice was filled with an emotional sigh. It was precisely Sima Yang who spoke to Duan Ling Tian with a light smile on his face. "Peerless genius?" Duan Ling Tian shook his head. "How can I be considered to be a peerless genius? How great is the Cloud Continent? Moreover, not to mention that foreign lands. Even if it's within the Darkhan dynasty, there are many people that are able to possess accomplishments that surpass me at my age." The eyes of the middle-aged man that led the way revealed slight surprise, and he even glanced deeply at Duan Ling Tian when he heard Sima Yang speak. And when he heard Duan Ling Tian's neither haughty nor humble reply, he couldn't help but nod to himself. Neither arrogant nor conceited, he was indeed a good seedling. Darkhan dynasty? Sima Yang's expression froze when he heard Duan Ling Tian, and he said with a bitter smile, "I didn't compare the Darkhan dynasty with you. In the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, your natural talent can indeed be considered to be a peerless genius." Darkhan dynasty? Sima Yang knew his limitations. Perhaps he had the opportunity to become eminent in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and head to the Darkstone Empire to compete with the young geniuses of the various imperial kingdoms. But wanting to become eminent in the Darkstone Empire was practically impossible. Not to mention the young geniuses of the Darkhan dynasty. Even if it was the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire, he still didn't dare compare with them. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and didn't say anything further. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? He'd never once thought that he would stay in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom for his entire lifetime, so it was impossible for him to not compare himself with the geniuses in the martial Dao from outside the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Sima Yang, Duan Ling Tian's vision is different from us. Our vision is fixed on the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and would rather be the head of a dog than the tail of a phoenix. Whereas Duan Ling Tian possesses a monstrous natural talent and would leave the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom sooner or later to wander in an even vaster world. Ji Feng laughed heartily, and his words seemed to have seen through Duan Ling Tian's thoughts. This caused Duan Ling Tian to be unable to help from looking slightly more highly of Ji Feng. Sima Yang laughed embarrassedly when he heard this. "It's my vision that's too narrow." Right at this moment, the middle-aged man that led the way spoke slowly. "After all of you enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, you must comply with the rules of the Academy. In the following year, besides being able to go out when the Academy distributes missions for all of you to gain experience, all of you only have one opportunity to go out every month, and you can choose this time yourselves. Once someone goes against the rules, that person will be expelled from the Academy and lose the qualification to participate in the competition 1 year from now." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, Ji Feng and Sima Yang revealed bitter smiles, as they never expected that there would be such rules. Duan Ling Tian's brows raised, but he remained indifferent. As far as he was concerned, his target was the competition held by the Dragon and Phoenix Academy 1 year from now. Moreover, it was to become eminent and win the opportunity to head to the Darkstone Empire to compete with the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire and the various imperial kingdoms. As for if he could stay in the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, or if he had time to go out, he didn't care.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.